In computer networks, a proxy server is a server that acts as an intermediary for requests from clients seeking resources from other servers. A client connects to the proxy server, requesting some service, such as a file, connection, web page, or other resource available from a different server, and the proxy server evaluates the request as a way to simplify and control its complexity. Proxies were invented to add structure and encapsulation to distributed systems. Today, most proxies are web proxies, facilitating access to content on the World Wide Web and providing anonymity. Types: a proxy server may reside on the user's local computer, or at various points between the user's computer and destination servers on the Internet. A proxy server that passes requests and responses unmodified is usually called a gateway, or sometimes a tunneling proxy. A forward proxy is an Internet-facing proxy used to retrieve from a wide range of sources. A reverse proxy is usually an internal-facing proxy used as a front-end to control and protect access to a server on a private network. A reverse proxy commonly also performs tasks such as load balancing, authentication, decryption, or caching. Open proxies. An open proxy is a forwarding proxy server that is accessible by any Internet user. Gordon Leon estimates there are hundreds of thousands of open proxies on the Internet. An anonymous open proxy allows users to conceal their IP address while browsing the web or using other Internet services. There are varying degrees of anonymity, however, as well as a number of methods of tricking the client into revealing itself regardless of the proxy being used. Reverse proxies. A reverse proxy is a proxy server that appears to clients to be an ordinary server. Requests are forwarded to one or more proxy servers which handle the request. The response from the proxy server is returned as if it came directly from the original server, leaving the client no knowledge of the origin service. Reverse proxies are installed in the neighborhood of one or more web servers. All traffic coming from the Internet and with a destination of one of the neighborhood's web servers goes through the proxy server. The use of reverse originates in its counterpart, forward proxy, since the reverse proxy sits closer to the web server and serves only a restricted set of websites. There are several reasons for installing reverse proxy servers: encryption, SSL acceleration. When secure websites are created, the secure sockets layer encryption is often not done by the web server itself, but by a reverse proxy that is equipped with SSL acceleration hardware. Furthermore, a host can provide a single SSL proxy to provide SSL encryption for an arbitrary number of hosts, removing the need for a separate SSL server certificate for each host, with the downside that all hosts behind the SSL proxy have to share a common DNS name or IP address for SSL connections. This problem can partly be overcome by using the subjectual name feature of X509 certificates. Load balancing. The reverse proxy can distribute the load to several web servers, each web server serving its own application area. In such a case, the reverse proxy may need to rewrite the URLs in each web page. Cache static content. A reverse proxy can offload the web servers by caching static content like pictures and other static graphical content. Compression. The proxy server can optimize and compress the content to speed up the load time. Spoon feeding reduces resource usage caused by slow clients on the web servers by caching the content the web server sent and slowly spoon feeding it to the client. This especially benefits dynamically generated pages. Security. The proxy server is an additional layer of defense and can protect against some OS and web server specific attacks. However, it does not provide any protection from attacks against the web application or service itself, which is generally considered the larger threat. Extranet publishing. A reverse proxy server facing the Internet can be used to communicate to a firewall server internal to an organization, providing extranet access to some functions while keeping the servers behind the firewalls. If used in this way, security measures should be considered to protect the rest of your infrastructure in case the server is compromised, as its web application is exposed to attack from the Internet. Uses monitoring and filtering. Content control software. A content filtering web proxy server provides administrative control over the content that may be relayed in one or both directions through the proxy. It is commonly used in both commercial and non-commercial organizations to ensure that Internet usage conforms to acceptable use policy. A content filtering proxy will often support user authentication to control web access. It also usually produces logs, either to give detailed information about the URLs accessed by specific users, or to monitor bandwidth usage statistics. It may also communicate to daemon-based and/or ICAP-based antivirus software to provide security against virus and other malware by scanning incoming content in real time before it enters the network. Many workplaces, schools and colleges restrict the websites and online services that are accessible and available in the buildings. Governments also censor undesirable content. This is done either with a specialized proxy, called a content filter, or by using a cache extension protocol such as ICAP, that allows plug-in extensions to an open caching architecture. Ironically, websites commonly used by students to circumvent filters and access blocked content often include a proxy, from which the user can then access the websites that the filter is trying to block. Requests may be filtered by several methods, such as the URL DNS blacklist, URL regex filtering, MIME filtering, or content keyword filtering. Some products have been known to employ content analysis techniques to look for traits commonly used by certain types of content providers. Blacklists are often provided and maintained by web filtering companies, are often grouped into categories. Assuming the requested URL is acceptable, the content is then fetched by the proxy. At this point, a dynamic filter may be applied on the return path. For example, JPEG files could be blocked based on flesh tone matches, or language filters could dynamically detect unwanted language. If the content is rejected, then an HTTP fetch error may be returned to the requester. Most web filtering companies use an internet-wide crawling robot that assesses the likelihood that a content is a certain type. The resultant database is then corrected by manual labor based on complaints and known flaws in the content matching algorithms. Some proxies scan outbound content, e.g., for data loss prevention, or scan content for malicious software. Filtering of encrypted data. Web filtering proxies are not able to peer inside secure sockets HTTP transactions, assuming the chain of trust of SSL/TLS has not been tampered with. The SSL/TLS chain of trust relies on trusted root certificate authorities. In a workplace setting where the client is managed by the organization, trust might be granted to a root certificate whose private key is known to the proxy. Consequently, a root certificate generated by the proxy is installed into the browser CList by IT star. In such situations, proxy analysis of the contents of a SSL/TLS transaction becomes possible. The proxy is effectively operating a man-in-the-middle attack allowed by the client's trust of a root certificate the proxy owns, bypassing filters and censorship. If the destination server filters content based on the origin of the request, the use of a proxy can circumvent this filter. For example, a server using IP-based geolocation to restrict its servers to a certain country can be accessed using a proxy located located in that country to access the service. Web proxies are the most common means of bypassing government censorship, although no more than 3% of Internet users use any circumvention tools. In some cases, users can circumvent proxies which filter using blacklists using services designed to proxy information from a non-blacklisted location. Logging and eavesdropping proxies can be installed in order to eavesdrop upon the data flow between client machines and the web. All content sent or accessed, including passwords submitted and cookies used, can be captured and analyzed by the proxy operator. For this reason, passwords to online services should always be exchanged over a cryptographically secured connection, such as SSL. By chaining proxies which do not reveal data about the original requester, it is possible to obfuscate activities from the eyes of the user's destination. However, more traces will be left on the intermediate hops which could be used or offered up to trace the user's activities. If the policies and administrators of these other proxies are unknown, the user may fall victim to a false sense of security just because those details are out of sight and mind. In what is more of an inconvenience than a risk, proxy users may find themselves being blocked from certain websites. Numerous forums and websites block IP addresses from proxies known to have spammed or trolled the site. Proxy bouncing can be used to maintain privacy. Improving performance. A caching proxy server accelerates service requests by retrieving content saved from a previous request made by the same client or even other clients. Caching proxies keep local copies of frequently requested resources, allowing large organizations to significantly reduce their upstream bandwidth usage and costs while significantly increasing performance. Most ISPs and large businesses have a caching proxy. Caching proxies were the first kind of proxy server. Web proxies are commonly used to cache web pages from a web server. Poorly implemented caching proxies can cause problems, such as an inability to use user authentication. A proxy that is designed to mitigate specific link-related issues or degradations is a performance-enhancing proxy. These typically are used to improve TCP performance in the presence of high round-trip times, a high packet loss, or highly asymmetric links, featuring very different upload and download rates. PEPs can make more efficient use of the network, for example by merging TCP/ACKs or compressing data sent at the application layer. Another important use of the proxy server is to reduce the hardware cost. An organization may have many systems on the same network or under control of a single server, prohibiting the possibility of an individual connection to the Internet for each system. In such a case, the individual systems can be connected to one proxy server, and the proxy server connected to the main server. Translation. A translation proxy is a proxy server that is used to localize a website experience for different markets. Traffic from global audiences is routed through the translation proxy to the source website. As visitors browse the proxied site, requests go back to the source site where pages are rendered. Original language content in the response is replaced by translated content as it passes back through the proxy. The translations used in a translation proxy can be either machine translation, human translation, or a combination of machine and human translation. Different translation proxy implementations have different capabilities. Some allow further customization of the source site for local audiences, such as excluding source content or substituting source content with original local content. Accessing services anonymously. An anonymous proxy server generally attempts to anonymize web surfing. There are different varieties of anonymizers. The destination server receives requests from the anonymizing proxy server, and thus does not receive information about the end user's address. The requests are not anonymous to the anonymizing proxy server, however, and so a degree of trust is present between the proxy server and the user. Many proxy servers are funded through a continued advertising link to the user. Access control. Some proxy servers implement a logon requirement. In large organizations, authorized users must log on to gain access to the web. The organization can thereby track usage to individuals. Some anonymizing proxy servers may forward data packets with header lines such as http_ via http_x_forwarded_for or http_forwarded, which may reveal the IP address of the client. Other anonymizing proxy servers, known as elite or high anonymity proxies, make it appear that the proxy server is the client. A website could still suspect a proxy as being used if the client sends packets which include a cookie from a previous visit that did not use the high anonymity proxy server. Clearing cookies, and possibly the cache, would solve this problem. QA Geo-targeted advertising. Advertisers use proxy servers for validating, checking and quality assurance of geo-targeted ads. A geo-targeting ad server checks the request source IP address and uses a geo-IP database to determine the geographic source of requests. Using a proxy server that is physically located inside a specific country or a city gives advertisers the ability to test geo-targeted ads. Security. A proxy can keep the internal network structure of a company secret by using network address translation, which can help the security of the internal network. This makes requests from machines and users on the local network anonymous. Proxies can also be combined with firewalls. An incorrectly configured proxy can provide access to a network otherwise isolated from the Internet. Cross-domain resources. Proxies allow websites to make web requests to externally hosted resources when cross-domain restrictions prohibit the website from linking directly to the outside domains. Proxies also allow the browser to make web requests to externally hosted content on behalf of a website when cross-domain restrictions prohibit the browser from directly accessing the outside domains.